Nathan Seiuli from Free Speech Union joins me on the program now. Nathan, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Morning. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Now, that would be fair, I mean, generalisation, but in little old Aotearoa, we are doing better than some, although with some of the proposed legislation, in particular human rights legislation, that could all change pretty quickly.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's sort of a bit of a Kiwi cliche, but we're punching well above our weight globally in terms of how we've protected free speech. New Zealand is an extremely free country, and our legislation and the legislative protection around free speech, though it's not as maybe strong or obvious as, say, the American system, is a lot more nuanced and a lot more, I would say, and we would consider protective on a global scale. So New Zealand is doing an incredible job, as we usually do in a number of areas. And yeah, we're really enjoying the work that we get to do at the Free Speech Union.
Now, the Law Commission has, raised some recommendations, run one up the flagpole when it comes to the Human Rights Act and, some questions about how we could do better. Now, of course, the Free Speech Union is not against human rights, but they would include free speech as top of the list when it comes to human rights, I suppose.
Well, 100%. We see free speech as the right that underpins all other rights. It's you can't have freedom of expression without freedom of speech. There's a lot of these other freedoms: religion, association, freedom to gather. All of these things are expressed primarily and in large part by speech. Yeah.
In terms of the Law Commission's recommendations, what do they say? What's up for grabs here?
It was a fairly scoped, and just to say as well, it's a discussion paper at this point. It's sort of the preamble to the recommendations, and they're looking specifically at whether or not to include transgender, non-binary, and other people with different sexual characteristics in Section 21, which is sort of the classes of the protected classes, I should say, where discrimination could exist or would exist. They want to include those people as a protected class against certain discrimination or discrimination in general, and that's what the discussion paper really looks at. Is there grounds for that? Is there a need for that? And the big concern for us is this paper does stand to serve as the base or the primary sort of building block that they build their recommendations off, that they then take to Parliament.
Now, people may have different views about transgender people, for example, but when it comes to human rights, if you are a human, you get the rights. Why a special category for transgender people?
No, there's a great question. And first and foremost, obviously, our rights should be protected on the basis that we're all human.
Yeah.
We all have innate value. We're all people. But it gets into dangerous territory when we start to profile and preference and protect groups over individuals. We always have to say that the individual is the largest minority. Yeah. And when we start to give groups rights and groups extra protections, it runs the risk of actually censoring and having an impact on the rest of society. But it's always done under the guise of safety. Where can we make people more safe? How can we make a group more safe? And unfortunately, in this scenario, and in many scenarios, safety for one group means censorship for everyone else.
Yeah.
It means held speech for everyone else. And it really does have a knock-on effect on all other people groups, all other laws as well. It would have a huge impact on in our nation. So we don't see it as appropriate to take a class or a group of people and sort of legislatively lift them up and protect them beyond a reasonable level, beyond them being individuals.
Part of the problem with this is for transgender people, and you're not picking a fight with anybody who's transgender, but it's self-identifying. So if you want to have the rights and privileges identified under this, well, at the moment it's not a recommendation, but it's tracking that way, you just put your hand up and say, yeah, I'm one of those people as well. Can I have those extra rights and privileges, please?
Well, exactly, and that's the thing with the law, right? You have to have extremely clear and definitive language in order to apply it, and when you don't, it really is a stick to beat your own back. Yeah. We see this with a lot of the issues surrounding this discussion. It's not clearly defined. It's opt-in, opt-out. It's up to the individual, and especially with something like discrimination, which has a clear definition. How can we have a group of people redefining discrimination every time they feel like someone's not participating in their lifestyle or their set of beliefs? It shouldn't be how things work.
Paint us a picture on this one, and worst case scenario in some ways. Where could this lead? What could this mean, Nathan?
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to reach too far, to be honest. I don't have to paint you an imaginary picture. We can look overseas. to Canada, to the UK, Scotland, certain cases in the US, and even in Australia, where there have been a real infringement on the rights of all people to protect a select group. I think just recently of the Tickle versus Giggle case in Australia, that was pretty controversial. We look at hate speech laws, which are introduced in Scotland. We look at the UK, where there is a number of legislative changes happening and people being jailed for Facebook comments or retweeting. And that's where this is for us. It's a speech issue. Like you mentioned, and we've said, we're not anti-transgender. We don't take substantive stances on things, but there is a very strong speech thread through all of these things that connects them all. And it's the idea that Kiwis don't need human right law to tell them what to think, how to think, and what to say in terms of pronouns. And we're seeing overseas where people are being forced or coerced, and they're in many cases making the mistake that the heavy hand of the law and the books being thrown at them out of trying to provide safety for a certain group. But yeah, so internationally, our people or our nations that we would compare ourselves to in terms of size, in terms of lifestyle and values are actually far behind us, like we said at the start of this interview, in regards to speech protections and individual liberties.
We are doing better than most in this regard, but this is only because of people using their free speech, speaking up. Organisations such as the Free Speech Union, some of this proposed legislation previously been pushed back by people speaking up. As you say, this is not recommendations at this stage. This is just a discussion paper from the Law Commission. But even at this stage, Nathan, can people have their say?
100%. We ran a big submission on this, but we're still collating the final number of that, but thousands of Kiwis participated. It's really important that people know and remember they do have a say. We live in a nation where we have the ability to have our voices heard, and that's what our primary focus at the Free Speech Union obviously is protecting that right and that freedom. So no, I think we need to be awake and aware that New Zealand isn't actually this bubble that is exempt or protected from the winds that are blowing across the world. We could very easily become a Canada or a UK, but we really, and we at the Free Speech Union might be heading up a lot of this work, but we're only able to do that because individuals engage. So yeah, it's not a far-fetched imaginary thought to imagine that one day we could have censorship laws in New Zealand to a high degree if we don't speak up now. And like you say, it's not a recommendation yet, but it's a red flag. Yep. And we're really, really concerned about this, and we're really sensitive to where it could go should we stay silent at this point.
And hey, this isn't the sort of thing where we can close our borders on this type of contagion. Actually, if it's happened overseas, if there's case law being made, then this could very well happen here. Details at Free Speech Union, fsu.nz. Just quickly wanted to touch on some exciting developments. Some international speakers are coming to New Zealand, sponsored by the Free Speech Union. And can I say, this is very FSU. I'm not sure that these speakers would have much in common. They wouldn't necessarily agree with each other philosophically or even theologically, but both are guests of the Free Speech Union between now and the end of the year.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And that's the thing. When you're a free speech advocate, you make uncommon bedfellows, we like to say, because it's that thread of free speech that connects us. Yep. But yeah, we have Professor Nigel Bigger, who's an Oxford professor, esteemed professor in theology. He's coming over. He's going to be doing our tour and will be our keynote speaker at our AGM. Okay. So he'll be here in November between the 5th and the 10th, and he'll be doing Wellington, Christchurch, and Auckland. And then following him, we actually have an American speaker. So Nigel's from the UK. We have American speaker Peter Boghossian, Dr. Peter Boghossian, who is a philosopher, who is on the other opposite end of the spectrum. He's written a book about converting people to atheism, but is a huge free speech advocate in his own right and a political commentator. So it'll be really interesting to see him, especially after the US election. Exactly. But we're really excited, and it'll round out our year. It'll be 5 tours for the year, and every time we've brought someone over, we have seen the free speech passion rise in New Zealand. So it's been awesome.
It has been fantastic. And the other thing about Free Speech Union, whoever you bring over and whatever venue you book, things get cancelled, you get upgraded to bigger venues. It's been a fun 18 months or so. Nathan, thank you so much for the work that you do in this space at the Free Speech Union. As we say, fsu.nz for more information. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks.